Hi, folks. Welcome back. So, I really enjoyed this paper from the recent CHI Computer Human Interaction Conference earlier this year. And this talks about what I feel is a shockingly under-investigated area, which is the cognitive architectures of how we use AI when we use it to make decisions, to think through things and investigate options and so on. And they set up a simple experiment to perform a decision-making task, and then they use two different AI assistant architectures. So there's two different ways in which they set up AI to help the human decision maker. And they have some really interesting findings. At the very highest level, they're looking at two different kinds of decision architectures. The first one is kind of the simple architecture which we're all familiar with, where there's some kind of a question we want to resolve or a decision we want to make, and we ask the AI for a recommendation. They call this recommend AI. And so the human asks the AI for a recommendation, the AI makes a recommendation, and the human then has to read and understand that recommendation, make sense of it, and the human makes the final decision. There's a second architecture that the authors also look at, which they call extend AI. And this is much more of a human first approach. So here they have the human first write out a plan for their decision. They then ask the AI to give feedback on the human's plan. So they're not asking the AI for an outright recommendation. They're asking the AI to comment on the human's decision-making thinking. And the human then looks at that feedback from the AI and then makes the final decision. So this is kind of the standard approach where you ask the AI for a recommendation, and this is the approach where the human makes a plan first, and then the AI helps them think through their plan. And the central idea here is that when you ask the AI for a recommendation, you're having to reason backwards from the recommendation. Whereas if you formulate a plan first, you're reasoning forward through the decision-making task. Another way to think about it would be, is the human really driving the decision-making, or is the AI driving it? All right, so what is the task and the experiment setup? The task that they're trying to make a decision about is an investment task where, for a hypothetical 40-year-old client, you need to construct a portfolio made up of ETFs that matches their investment goals. They found 18 participants to go through these experiments, and they filtered these participants such that they knew enough about ETFs and investments and so on to understand what the task was and go through the reasoning. And all these participants were set up with this kind of toy ETF trading tool and divided into these two groups, the recommendation group and the extend AI group. And like I was explaining before, in the recommendation group, the user simply requests the AI to make a recommendation, a trading recommendation, and the AI tells them which ETFs to buy. In the extend AI group, the user has to start by writing out a rationale. The AI then gives them critique and feedback on their rationale. And importantly, in this critique, you can differentiate in bold between what the user originally proposed versus what feedback the AI is giving them. And then after making sense of this, the user proceeds to trade some ETFs. And then at the end of this exercise, all the participants are asked a bunch of questions on a 1 to 5 scale. And these are the findings. So we see, in terms of how often participants consider the AI suggestion, it is higher for the extend AI group. The interesting thing is that the participants found that the recommendation group, where the AI straight away gives them a recommendation, is better for giving them new insights that they hadn't thought of before. And then, not surprisingly, the Extend AI group reported that they felt like the AI was interfering less with their decision making. The Extend AI group felt like they trusted the AI's output more, they had more confidence in their decisions, they had higher overall satisfaction with the system as a whole. But paradoxically, it was the Recommend AI group that said that they would be more likely to use such a system in the real world. Not surprisingly, the Extend AI group felt like they were exerting more cognitive effort than the Recommend AI group. In terms of the total number of trades executed, if you look at the percentage of trades that were not part of the user's initial plan, for the Extend AI group, it was only 23%. So they stuck to more of what they initially thought of trading. Whereas for the Recommend AI group, the fraction of trades which were directly suggested by AI was almost half, 45%. And I also found this difference interesting. For the Extend AI group, they only executed about 5 trades, whereas the Recommend AI group executed 6 trades. This is interesting because there are other long-term studies which have shown that the more you leave your portfolio alone, the higher your returns tend to be over a long period of time. So the more trigger happy your trading is, the more you're probably hurting your returns. The contrast between these two styles is really interesting. There wasn't a clear winner. The participants were split roughly evenly in terms of which modality they preferred. But some of the qualitative feedback is really interesting. So, for example, when talking about recommendations, many participants didn't like the black box nature of it. Like someone is saying over here, it was recommending stuff, it doesn't know my current state of mind, it directly gave me some kind of do this, then do this, which I followed without thinking too much. On the other hand, the Extend AI mode gave them more agency and freedom to think for themselves, not aggressively recommending you to buy, sell something. And this is really interesting. So the straight up recommender encouraged people to look at things they had not thought of, the ETFs they had not considered, and looking into new directions. Whereas the Extend AI mode helped them more critically examine their own reasoning and find blind spots in why they picked certain ETFs. The other big downside of the recommender that many participants pointed out was the black box nature of it. And conversely, with Extend AI, they found it easier to verify because it was threaded in as a critique of their own reasoning. So they weren't looking at a blank slate rationale. But on the flip side, a lot of participants found it annoying and cumbersome to have to type out their entire rationale ahead of time. And this is where that split comes from, of there being no clear winner. Half the people preferred one, half the people preferred the other, which points to an interesting trade-off between as the authors say over here, between cognitive engagement and user preference. But overall, I've found this paper really interesting because, like I said at the beginning, this whole area of the cognitive architectures, the ways in which we use and embed AI into our thinking and decision making processes has not been investigated deeply at all. And this is, I feel, a great direction, a great initial study, which points out some of the differences in terms of how we think, how we engage, how we interpret the final decision that are affected by how we use the AI. I feel a lot of the discourse around AI and LLMs today simply makes the default assumption that we will just straight up ask the AI directly for an answer and not do any of the cognitive lifting ourselves. Whereas there are many other ways of engaging with AI, and this paper presents one of them. So, great paper. Check out the full paper. I'll have a link in the description. All right. Thanks.